Welcome to Betting Weekly Extra Time European Edition. You're with Dan Roebuck alongside me, Steve Wyss and James Eastham. This week, of course, we'll be tackling Liga, Serie A, Bundesliga and La Liga. The best bets from Steve and James to come. This, gang, off the back of the final international break of the season. The World Cup is just around the corner. And it got me to thinking maybe just from a prop angle rather than a team angle. Are we steering clear of players that suffered disappointment with their national side, or indeed were partying until the early hours, as Edin Dzeko, I think, was, after Bosnia-Herzegovina got through? I mean, do we take any notice of these things? Steve, how are you?
Good morning to both of you. Do you know what? What an exciting finish to the international break it was. I mean, me and James did the live show on Tuesday, and it was such a lot of fun, wasn't it, James? Really got me into World Cup mode, stuff like that. And, you know, for some teams, it's been a disappointment. For some teams and players, it's obviously great, euphoric. And but I'd not really thought about avoiding these players, or for whatever reason, Dan, to be honest. The only thing I can sort of, it brings me back the last few years as a Leeds fan. Often the Wales players are a bit tired after this break. So from a selfish perspective, I was kind of glad they didn't have that letdown again playing Italy. They obviously had the letdown against Bosnia, but had a bit more time to recover. I think it can happen on individual cases. There's no doubt about it. But you've got to know these players inside out. You've got to know how the feeling is inside the camp. And I'm not sure we can quantify that. So I'm not actually going to overcomplicate it this time and say, he was out partying. They're going to be downbeat. And these players that are downbeat might really want to respond quickly and put in better performances. So I'm not going to overthink it on this sort of thing.
Yeah, probably best, James, I would have thought.
Yeah, I would say that's probably fair. I think travel is a factor. Having said that, there's a lot of these big games this week have been played for us in Europe on the other side of the Atlantic. And some players playing two games, whether it be in North, Central or South America. There'll be some tired players, put it that way, playing in the European top leagues this weekend. And, of course, our league programme of games here starts on the Friday night. You've got some players who are playing overnight Tuesday to Wednesday, our time in Europe, and then their team are playing on Friday night. So I think team news is important. I think, for me, that would be a bigger reason to swerve the prop markets this weekend. Some uncertainty about how fresh certain players are going to be. And I think we might see some rotation as well. So if you are a fan of the player props markets, this might be the weekend to wait and see what the actual starting 11s are.
Yeah, and bettors have also got to consider next week's Champions League quarter-final first legs as well. And that might be a bigger thing. Because obviously we're talking about teams rather than players. And that's where we start here, Steve, because we're going to kick off with just some chat about the Atleti-Barcelona game, because it's a fascinating encounter. James has got a lean on it. Steve's got some thoughts, I'm sure, but no official plays. But there's going to be a lot of betting interest, a lot of handle on this game. A, it's a massive game anyway. B, of course, it's the forerunner to the quarterfinal in the Champions League. The first leg is at Camp Nou. This at the Metropolitano, Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern. Atleti are plus 215, Barca are plus 112, and the tie at plus 275 here. Now, Steve, Atleti can't win La Liga. We've talked about this over the last few weeks. So surely we'll concentrate on that Champions League away leg, Barcelona. Barcelona are 4 clear at the top. Can't really afford to get too complacent and take their foot off the gas. They've got injury issues as well. It's a difficult one for them. What are your thoughts, Atleti-Barcelona here? Want to steer clear? Want to take big advantage of Barcelona, do you think? Because Rory Barlow was on the live show saying, look, Atleti are just going to be not that interested in winning the game. They'll want to put a shift in and make it difficult for Barcelona, but, there's ways and means of doing that. How are we assessing the big game in Spain this weekend?
Well, these two are going to get very cosy with each other, aren't they, over the next few weeks? They already have this season. It's going to be 6 meetings across the board this season now. And there's no doubt about it, this league match means a lot more to Barcelona than Atletico. I mean, Atletico, I mentioned it before, they're in no man's land a little bit, aren't they, in the league? They know where they're going to finish. They're in the Champions League spots. That's not going to change. They can't win the league. They'd probably much rather Barcelona win the league than Real Madrid as well. So a little bit of that. And they would much rather get a result in midweek than at the weekend. it's a huge 2 or 3 weeks for Atletico, isn't it? They've got the Copa del Rey final coming up as well. So their whole season's on the line in the next 2 or 3 weeks, but it's all about the cup. So I think ultimately, Barcelona probably will win. Barcelona at plus money, you don't get that very often, do you, in La Liga? You don't get that often anywhere, so that's going to be an attractive bet, and I could see it landing. Corners, of course. I nearly had the official corners play in this game. The line is 10.5, and I like the over there. Both these two sides average the most corners in La Liga, and we've seen I think in the Copa del Rey meetings, there was several corners that racked up. So if it's like a normal meeting, I think we will get probably quite a few goals, a lot of corners, probably Barcelona win, but could there be a bit of some of these fixtures after the international break can be a bit poor, can't they, occasionally, where there's disjointment amongst players and all that. And if Atletico do have their eye on the midweek more, are they going to expend as much energy? So there's a few little bit of doubts in my mind about it. But that's how I see it going overall. I'm not going to bet anything officially on the game, but those are the angles I'll be looking at.
It's interesting, speaking to Rory, he suggested that Barcelona are a decent price. They are ever so slightly shorter when it comes to the money line than they were for the Copa game in February, which they were hammered in 4-0. They complained about the pitch, as teams do when they get beat at Metropolitano. Last season, again, similar price, slightly bigger. They won 1-0 away from home. James, you've got a lean on this one. What's your take?
Yeah, I think it is a good opportunity to back Barcelona to win the game. It's just a lean from me on them to do so because I'm not 100% sure about their team news as well as Atletico's team news as we're recording this, but I cannot see a reason why Atletico Madrid would not be resting players this weekend. Every which way you look at this game, it doesn't really matter to Atletico other than the professional pride that they would have every time they play. Steve said it, they're in no man's land in the league table. They're in fourth place, they're 13 points clear of fifth place, and they're 12 points behind the top two, which is what matters. The top two are the two going for the title, so they are in no man's land, and I think they will feel they've got a pretty good chance against Barcelona in the Champions League over 2 legs. I think if they look at how they've played against Barcelona head-to-head this season, I don't think they'll be intimidated by that Champions League tie. So why would they let a relatively meaningless league game this weekend get in the way of being in optimum shape for that first leg in the Champions League next Wednesday? I think the Barcelona plus money price is definitely tempting. It's a must-win game for Barcelona. That's how I see it. And I say that because they've got this 4-point lead over Real Madrid, but they still have Real Madrid to play in La Liga. So anything other than a win for Barcelona this weekend, Real Madrid might be within striking distance of them before that head-to-head. I think that's how Barcelona will see it. They don't have a choice. It's a must-win for them here, and then they go into the Champions League game after it. So I think that difference in motivation, what I think will probably be a difference in team news and team starting lineup strength, let's say, means that Barcelona look a pretty good price to me at plus money. Something like plus 112, I think, will probably stay until kickoff. If you're a little bit more cautious, you could always take Barcelona with a minus quarter goal start on the Asian handicap. I think that's minus 118. So that would be my way of looking at this game. It's just a lean from me. There's a lot of uncertainty around the team news as we're recording this on both teams, but I do think when we get to kickoff and look at those lineups, Barcelona of the two will be fielding the stronger starting 11.
Yeah, I think it might go a little bit wild. It was one of those fixtures a few years ago that didn't come into the Real Madrid-Barcelona category where all your normal metrics went out the window and you could really concentrate on head-to-head. But we've had 4-4s, 2-4s, 4-0s, 3-0s this season in the Copa. Interesting that Hansko, a Slovakian player for Atleti, and Lewandowski, obviously a Polish player, missed out on World Cup. Saw the pictures of Lewandowski. He's not going to play in a World Cup again, obviously. Don't know if that's going to be a factor at all with those two, James. And I wanted to ask you about Griezmann as well, because he's off to Orlando and MLS. I'm pretty sure this is the first game since the announcement. I mean, it might have been sort of fairly well known in Spain and indeed French circles for that matter. But I just wonder, this is his sort of farewell tour starting, isn't it? Do you start to bet him on the props? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. It's something he's wanted to do for a long, long time. He'd made it clear he wanted to go out to America and play there after Atletico Madrid. It was just a case of timing. There was a bit of talk he might move to Orlando City around now, actually, and I think that would have been a real shame for him to miss out on the chance to finish the season properly at Atletico Madrid and maybe win a couple of big trophies, right? So I think this is the right way to go about it. Yeah, I think, listen, Griezmann's been an amazing player, hasn't he, for Atletico down the years in two different spells. He's looked pretty sharp to me. Maybe not as much of a starter as he once was, but yeah, I think so. He's a big game player. He's obviously achieved a huge amount in his career. He is someone I will definitely be looking at on the props markets across the competitions over the next couple of months.
It's an interesting one. Steve, don't you got any thoughts on those players we just mentioned? And you talked about, being fearful as a Leeds fan. When Rafinha was there, he was key, and he's going to be missing for Barcelona for a little while, isn't he? That's a big blow for them.
I think it's a big loss in the Champions League ties. I'm kind of going with James. I've got a gut feeling Atletico might be really, really competitive in those two ties and might even get past Barcelona. But you tell you what, you got me thinking there about the props down the line in a few weeks' time when we want to be getting on players who are leaving clubs or, for sort of emotional reasons. Griezmann, you've got to back him in his last game for Atletico, haven't you? Score. Mm-hmm. Because they'll find a way, hopefully, to get him on the score sheet. I know you love those sort of bets, Dan. You're a big fan of those.
Listen. It's just, look, we've talked about them over the last few years, and both of you have given me players. Last day of the season, when they're leaving clubs, it doesn't matter where they play, they get them on penalties, all that sort of thing. Lewis Jones promised me he was going to compile a list of players that are out of contract that are desperate for a new deal because he thinks that they start to play a little bit better. Suddenly they get the new deal and then they switch off. Incidentally, Griezmann against Barcelona, 38 times he's played against Barcelona in his career. He has scored 8 goals. Be interesting to see what happens with Griezmann if he does indeed play this weekend, but certainly going forward, one to keep an eye on from the prop market. Lean from James in this one, Barcelona on the money line, plus money. Rory suggested it was a good bet as well. I'm going to weigh in it with it also. I think Atletico are going to take the foot off for this one. I'm sort of with Steve for next midweek, but we'll tackle the Champions League when it comes around. That's the big game of the weekend. In Spain, we have got plenty of official plays from the boys. We are recording a day early. There's no Premier League action this weekend, so our slot has been moved forward, and that means that we can talk about Friday games. They're usually off the menu, but they're not, and that means that Steve can give us some thoughts on Rayo against Elche, which is Friday night, 3 p.m. Eastern. Rayo with the favourites at minus 132. I don't know why I'm bothered reading out the moneyline prices here. Elche are plus 380. The draw at plus 260. Steve?
There's a reason we moved it forward a day, so I could have a bet in this game. You know what I'm betting on? It is the corners. It is over 9.5 corners at minus 122 for a 1-unit play. And look, I think this might be one of the last chances to actually get with Rayo for corners this season, because I believe soon they are going to be really full focus on the Conference League. But that comes up in Thursday. There's another, 6 days until then. So I think they won't be fully distracted by it yet. The last couple of matches for Rayo, right back on the corner train with them. I mean, what team at the Camp Nou out corners Barcelona 9-6?
No big
Rayo Vallecano.
Incredible.
Against Samsunspor they lost actually the second leg. They were 13-1. The second last La Liga game against Levante went over the corner line as well. And I think, this team just keeps racking up corners, and they keep conceding corners as well at times. I mentioned how, they do have one of the highest corner rates in the league, but they concede an average of over 5 as well. Now, Elche are an interesting one of the lowest corner teams in the Liga over the season, 3.66 corners per game, which is not many. I'm not really sure when I watch them play. I quite like watching Elche games, actually. Really tend to play the right sort of style and technical way and good on the eye. So I wouldn't say they're a boring team. I think it's maybe possibly a lack of shots, maybe not getting to the byline, but it's the sort of game I think they can probably contribute with corners, actually, because of the pitch here at Rayo. It's so narrow, it's so tight and congested that it it just lives and breathes corners. So I'm not actually going to be put off by those Elche corner stats, and game state might mean that they naturally get quite a few anyway. So over 9.5 corners, it's been a staple diet, hasn't it, this season for Rayo matches at -122 for an official 1-unit play.
Yeah, Steve did put up that Levante game as a winner, and then didn't for the Barca game, but there was a little bit of texting between the two, and I think he only just missed off your list a couple of weeks ago. That's Rayo against Elche. Let's take in some Serie A previews, some really good games in the Italian top flight coming away this weekend. James first up here with the Sunday game, 2:45 Eastern, which is Inter versus Roma. Inter -157, Roma +420, the tie +280 here. I am getting a little concerned about my Roma top 4 bet here, James. They have slipped to 6, I think, in the table at the minute. What are your thoughts on this one? What's the pick?
I'm expecting an open game here, Dan, between Inter and Roma. And the pick is both teams to score yes, which is available at -109, which I think is a pretty good price. Yeah, we're coming towards the end of the season, obviously, and I think both of these sides actually probably feel they're not quite where they would like to be. That sounds a bit silly with Inter being top of the table, but their points lead over second place Milan is only 6 points. And I think if you go back maybe 6 weeks, 7 weeks, yeah, they probably thought it was going to be a little bit bigger by now. They've not quite managed to pull away to the extent that they would have liked. So there's still quite a lot riding on these games for Inter at the moment. And Roma, you're right, Dan. Yeah, they're down to 6th now in the race for a top 4 spot, although it's very close points-wise. They're only 3 points off 4th place. So it's a game with everything to play for both sides. I think Inter obviously are going to go for the win here at home. And I think Roma will be pretty positive because they can't really afford to lose any more ground in that race for a top 4 spot. So I'm expecting a pretty open game between two teams who have been scoring well anyway. Inter are the top scorers at home in Serie A this season with 39 goals in 15 games. And Roma, yeah, we mentioned it before the international break a couple of times actually about them maybe playing a little bit more open football. I think we were on the overs when they played Genoa, and that came in for us because they were both attacking but also conceding chances. They've scored in their last 9 in all competitions. I think they scored in something like 20 of their last 22 in all competitions. So whatever you think of how Roma have played this season, I personally think they've been a little bit more inconsistent than we would have liked. There have been generally at least one goal. There has been generally at least one goal in their games. So I think they're a good bet to get on the score sheet this weekend, as Inter pretty much always are when they play at home. So I like the price here. I think -109 on both teams to score yes is a good value pick.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. You're right. I mean, the only slight caveat is that obviously they did beat Lecce, who were an awful team, 1-0 last time out, but against the better teams, against the more expansive teams, they started to go a little bit more Gasperini, like a little bit more head-to-head, a little bit toe-to-toe, sorry. I quite like that one. Both teams to score yes for Inter-Roma on Sunday. Let's get to Juventus-Genoa next, which is an Easter Monday game, midday. The boys are in alignment here. Juve are -286, Genoa +900, the tie +350. And speaking of that top 4 race, Juve obviously very much in it at the moment, and we'll have a little chat about the top 4 situation after we get picks from the boys. Steve, what do you like in Juve Genoa?
Both teams score yes. Looks a massive price to me, Dan, here. +135. Can't believe how big this is, to be honest with you, because listen, we've flagged on about Genoa for a long time, and about there being a lot of goals in their games. The only match they let me down in was the Inter fixture away from home, where they didn't offer much. So I'm a little bit concerned that maybe could they go in their shell again against Juventus? Maybe, but then you just look at this Juventus team, and all season, whenever they've let us down, it's that defense, and it keeps happening too often now, Dan. That I have no faith in this Juventus defense anymore. I like the offense, and I think there's plenty of goals in it, but it's a massive Achilles heel for me. They don't win enough matches to nil. So, I mean, I think we probably can expect Juventus to probably win the game. But do I think they're going to keep a clean sheet? No, I don't at all. I think Genoa can get on the score sheet. I mean, really, it's the question is, do you want to take both teams score? Yes. Do you want to take over 2.5 goals? Well, over 2.5 goals is minus money. Okay, Juventus could cover that on their own. May well do. But when you can get such a big difference here with the both teams to score, yes, and that last game, by the way, against Sassuolo, ended a 1-1 tie. If we got that again, we would cash with this bet. I just think Genoa are being underrated offensively here, and Juventus probably overrated defensively. I've had it up to here with that defence this season now. I'm sick of it, to be honest. Continual mistakes, individual errors, switching off, and it keeps happening. There's some stat about the amount of times they concede with their first shot on target conceded. It keeps happening. So hopefully that trend continues, and we can get both teams on the score sheet here. Plus 135. There's no way I could resist this one official 1 unit play.
Just to let everyone know, I mean, I always bang on about the P&L for Genoa over 2.5. They are the most profitable both teams to score side. Is yes, not quite as big a numbers. There is correlation, but Stephen James and a lot of the handicappers always talk about the fact that look, with the over 2.5. And you both teams to score, it's whether you want 1-1 on your side. That's always the sort of key driver, which way you go sometimes. The P&L for Genoa is about half of what it is for both teams to score, yes, plus 785 to level stakes as opposed to plus 1447 for overs. James, you're on the same ticket here.
Yeah, I am. Exactly the same pick from me. 1 unit on both teams to score, yes, at plus 135. And I think I've had a very similar thought process to Steve when I've been looking through the prices as well. I could not believe how big this price was on both teams to score. We've talked about how open Genoa games have been, and it stood out straight away when I went through the prices in Serie A. And yeah, like Steve, what is most confusing about this price is the difference between the both teams to score yes price and the over 2.5 goals price. Minus 105 for over 2.5 goals, plus 135 for both teams to score yes. So it doesn't make a great deal of sense to me, that, because the only way the over 2.5 goals price would cash without the both teams to score yes bet cashing is if Juventus win big, 3-0, 4-0, 5-0. Is that more likely than both teams scoring? I'm not sure it is. So it really stood out to me. And, Steve's mentioned there about Juventus defensively. They have been a bit disappointing at times. I think they've conceded in 9 out of 15 at home in Serie A. Mistakes have been made all season by that Juventus defence, so there has been a frustration, and it would be great to have that on side with this play. And just on Genoa, we talked a lot about the change in their style of play with their change of manager when De Rossi came in and replaced Vieira, but they've actually scored in 11 of their 14 away games all season. That's under both their managers. That's a really good record for a side who are down near the bottom of the table of just getting on the score sheet when they were away from home. So they're clearly very comfortable going forward, and they would back themselves, I think, to give Juventus real problems here. And same as Steve, it's such a standout price that you couldn't overlook it. So exactly the same play from me. Both teams to score, yes.
Yeah, I think we all like that. It's a fair price, more than fair, plus 135. Juve had Gatti and Locatelli in the Italian squad, both played against Bosnia-Herzegovina. Gatti, the defender, came on after Bastoni was sent off, so I don't know what sort of mindset he's going to have for this. And I think Genoa are really good value. My one trouble with it, and Steve sort of half mentioned it before, if Genoa go to this game as they did against Inter, that would be a little bit of a question mark, because that was the one that let us down for the overs, and they didn't really play to their best ability. And hopefully De Rossi has thought, look, let's give this one more of a go. Juve are really short. I quite like Genoa plus 1. I'll probably end up betting them as well as both teams to score yes. Quick look at the top 4 prices. Steve, look, Inter, Milan, Napoli probably over the line for top 4 in Champions League. Then Como are minus 155, Juve plus 175, Roma plus 300. The Opta analysts think that Como should be shorter in the betting and the other two should be bigger. How do you see it? I mean, it'd be a great story if Como got there. I'm hoping that my Roma bet still cashes, but I'm getting slightly concerned. Who's going to nick that 4th Champions League spot?
You won't hear this probably too often that I say this, but I agree with Opta. I agree with Opta that I think Como have got it. I mean, I've done my maths and my calculations. Unfortunately, I think your Roma bet's dead down. I've got them picking up 17 more points.
Steve.
I've got Juventus picking up 19, and I've got Como picking up 19. I think Como's fixtures are pretty good. They've got to play Inter at home, and they've got to play Napoli at home. I mean, I've got them picking 1 point from those two games. They might get more because they've played the top teams pretty well this season. The only thing I'll say for Como, they've got the second leg of the Italian Cup as well. Could they end up in the final there? That could be a distraction. So that could be the crumb of comfort for Juventus and Roma bettors. But, I mean, there's the other thing, I suppose Juventus and Roma just focusing entirely on the league, and that is it now. But I think Como's fixtures look good, and they're not showing any signs of stopping this train at the minute, Como. Who have they got this weekend, Como?
I mean,
they're never much of a price, are they?
They've got Udinese away.
I mean,
Udinese away.
They're massive. I mean, that, to be honest with you, that probably should be. They'll win the game. But they're
is it
minus
Udinese
one.
away? Have I got that right?
40, are they?
Yeah.
Minus 140. Udinese are on the beach.
Yeah.
Como will win that game. Really should probably add them as a pick, shouldn't I? But yeah, they'll get that job done, and I think they'll get the job done in a lot of other fixtures.
I think Steve's mentioned that. I mean, Inter at home and Napoli at home, but they're both at home. Whereas Juve have got Atalanta away, they've got Milan away. Roma have still got the Rome derby. Admittedly, they're the designated home team, but they've got to go to Bologna, who knocked them out of the Europa League. They've also got Inter, obviously, this weekend. James, who's going to nick fourth?
Yeah, I don't really see it the same as Opta. I think the prices are probably about right. I think scheduling is the thing. Como, they're still in the Italian Cup, as Steve has said, the Coppa Italia. They've got that to deal with. It's only one more fixture, potentially, the semi-final second leg. But if they get through, then it's more than that. And there's just that sense of it. They're entering uncharted territory. So this is obviously new ground for them as a club. It's new ground for Fabregas, the manager, who are obviously all very excited about as a potentially great new managerial prospect. But there are a few unknowns when you enter this stage of a season and you're not a club or a team or a manager who's used to being there. That's the only thing I would say about Como. I think Steve's probably right on the stats, but there's obviously those other things to take into account. Having said that, they've been really impressive. They've been very good at home, and they are in the driving seat. It's only a 3-point lead they've got in fourth place over Juve and Roma, but we've touched on the inconsistency of both of those other teams anyway. And there's no reason why they would stop being a little bit inconsistent now. So, yeah, I think the minus money price on Como at the moment to clinch a top 4 spot makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think what's baked into the current odds as opposed to the Opta odds, which may well be right for once, is that unknown, as James pointed out. And also, as Steve suggested, that Coppa Italia, we don't know exactly how that's going to unfold. That's top 4 race. Let us know who you think is going to nick fourth spot, or indeed if any of the ones above them are going to drop out. And you see it a little bit different to the market in the chat. Bundesliga, one pick from Steve here. Stuttgart-Dortmund, really interesting game. Saturday, 12:30 Eastern. It's a big one, third versus second. There are 8 points between the two. Stuttgart are still in the Pokal, Steve. But this is still probably bigger for Stuttgart than it is for Dortmund in terms of top 4 in Champions League and so on. But Stuttgart are the favourites, plus 132. Dortmund plus 165. What's your thoughts on this one? I know your bet's outside of the money line, but a really good game, this.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an excellent game. And, this is probably the squarest play of the whole show. Just going to stick with the blindingly obvious here and back the goals. Get on the overs, and I'm not even going to overcomplicate it. Straight over 3.5 at plus 110, because whenever these two teams meet, there's usually fireworks. There was a 3-3 draw earlier this season, 5-1 last year. There's another 3-3 draw a couple of years ago. It's just fighting fire with fire. Stuttgart are such an over team, aren't they? It's incredible how much of an over team they are, and when you watch them play, it's no surprise. It's just absolutely mental stuff at both ends of the field, and nothing's ever going to change. And, Dortmund have had a lot of goals in them of late. Girassi's found a bit of form again. It's always a maybe slight doubt after the international break, but it's not been the most demanding of breaks for some of these players. And it's a Sunday game, isn't it, is this one? Sorry, no, it's the late Saturday.
It's Saturday.
Yeah. The evening kickoff on Saturday. And this, unlike the Sunday kickoff slots on evening, the Saturday evening ones can be absolutely bonkers. So for me, I looked at this card in the Bundesliga. There was a few bets that I considered. Really want to try and oppose Wolfsburg as much as I can this season for the rest of it, but I thought Leverkusen were a bit short. But this was just the obvious bet for me. Sometimes there's not much more you can really say. I don't think there'll be anyone who would really like the unders for the fixture. So, yeah, sometimes the square plays are the best plays, the obvious plays are the best plays. So we'll have an official 1 unit play. You could go Asian 3 or Asian 3.25, but to be honest with you, Dan, we're at the stage of the season where let's put our money where our mouth is now. Full goal line, 3.5, not overcomplicate it, straight in there for 1 unit.
Liga to tackle. We have got 3 games to look at, but 4 picks. First up, Saturday, 3:05 Eastern, so the main game in France. Lille against Lens. Lens obviously gunning for the title, but they are the outsiders here. Lille are plus 155, Lens plus 175, the tie plus 230. Big derby game, this one. James, where's your money going?
Yeah, big derby game, and my money is going on Lens, the away team here. The play is a 1 unit play, and it's on Lens tie no bet, which is available at minus 110. And I was surprised to see that Lens are the underdogs here. Lille plus 155 to win, Lens plus 175 to win, despite the fact that it's a game between 2 sides who, they look quite close in the table. Lens are second and Lille are fifth, but Lens have been, I would say, quite comfortably the better of the 2 sides this season. They're still in the title race against PSG. There's a 12-point gap between the sides, so I would have had Lens as slight favourites here. It's a very short journey for them. It's going to be a hostile atmosphere from the home fans, but the latest reports would say they're going to have a pretty good number of their own fans there as well. So I don't think the chances of Lens losing the game are quite as big as the market would suggest. And a really big factor for me, Dan, is the international break. That was what swung this in the end from being a lean to a pick for me, because of these 2 teams, Lille have been far more affected as regards having players away on international duty. If you look through the starting 11 that I think the Lille manager would like to name for this game, nearly every outfield player is either on his way back from injury or was away on international duty. So I think there's a lot of disruption in terms of their training ahead of this game. He's had a skeleton squad to work with as the Lille coach most of this week, getting ready for the match because people have been all over the place or not fully fit. Players like Chancel Mbemba, who's a centre-back at Lille, have been involved in big games. He's a DR Congo international. They got through to the World Cup with their qualifying win, playoff win over Jamaica. On the other side of the Atlantic, and he's come back. He's had a teammate there with him as well from Lille. So loads and loads of disruption in the build-up to the game. I think it will give the manager pause for thought about exactly how strong a side he can name here, because 1 or 2 players may not be as fresh as he would like, and all the rest of it. And in contrast, a lot of Lens's bigger and better players this season have not been involved in international action at all. There's 4 or 5 top players from the Lens side who've just been at the training ground, prepping for the game since their last league game. So I just feel that Lens will be in better shape here, and will have a stronger focus on the game. Obviously, it's a massive game for both clubs because it's a derby, but in terms of maybe the tactical work and the focus of the players just on this one big event this weekend, I think it's going to be a tough ask for Lille to actually win the match in 90 minutes. So yeah, Lens tie no bet for me. You obviously get your stakes back in the event of the game ending in a tie with that play. But right now, for a side in Lens who are going for the title, who've got pretty good team news and are fairly settled and fresh and focused on the match, I think Lens tie no bet is the play.
I priced this one up at plus 120. Lens and the plus 175. So I agree with you there, just on my numbers. Let's get to Metz against Nantes, which is a Sunday game, 11:15. Stephen, James, both similar thoughts, not exactly the same here. Metz are plus 195, Nantes plus 138, the tie plus 225. On the overs and unders line, unders is favourite at minus 150 on the 2.5 goal line. Plus 114, over 2.5 has just been nibbled at a little bit. This is a significant game, Steve, at the wrong end of the table.
It certainly is. So at this stage of the season, there's only one bet I'm going to be taking, and it's the overs. And, this sort of relegation theory desperation for goals is certainly alive and well after the La Liga winner I had last time out. 4-2 that ended to Levante, I think. And do you know what? If we got something similar again, I wouldn't be surprised, because this is absolutely, I love this situation. Both sides stranded at the bottom of the table. This is a must-win for both. Absolutely must-win. Nothing else is acceptable. Certainly for Metz, time is really, really running out. And for Nantes, if you look at their fixtures they've got left this season, they've got to play, I think, the top four still. So it's do or die. They've got to win the game. And in these sort of situations, the teams are poor, but they're desperate. And I mentioned it before, you can get a randomly really high-scoring game out of absolutely nowhere. It kind of happened, actually, not too long ago. Metz won Auxerre 3. And, I mean, remember, at that stage, Auxerre could hardly score a goal anywhere, could they? Still can't, really. But, that match was way more open than most expected, and I think we'll get the same again. The form for both is so bad. It's so bad, but they'll look at this as a winnable fixture. I think Nantes have lost 9 of the last 10. Is it the one they won? Somehow we were actually against them. How unlucky were we that day when they beat Le Havre? I can't believe it. Sums up our season, really, doesn't it? But I'm expecting the goals. I'm going straight over 2.5 goals here, plus 116. James is going to do a different line. I've no problem with that either. If I was staking more of the game, I would go to the 2.25 line. But overall, I think the favourite should be minus money for over 2.5 goals, not the other way around. And by the way, how can Nantes be favourites significantly? I'm not having that. There's no way that at this point in time, Nantes should be a favourite to win any game, I don't think. I know it's Metz, but I'm not having, plus 138. Who would want to bet on Nantes at plus 138 to win any soccer game, even if it's against Metz? No, thank you. I actually think Metz might beat them. Something like 3-2. Play around with some correct scores and maybe some high goal lines in this match as well.
I've got decimal 2.93, 2.92. So each are 2 really for my ratings on this one. Why is it always the bad beats we remember rather than the winners?
There you go.
James, Steve has sort of mentioned your bet here. Tell us why you like the over 2.25 line.
Yeah, 2.25 line is my 1 unit play here, so a slightly more conservative line than Steve, which is available at minus 114. But I agree with pretty much everything Steve has said there. This is a game between the bottom 2 in the division. The bottom 2 are automatically relegated. Nantes are 5 points from potential safety. I say potential safety because the team above them are the team that are in the currently in the relegation playoff position. Right. So you're not completely safe, but that would be better than going straight down, wouldn't it? And Metz are 8 points from potential safety. So it is a huge game for both sides. If they were not to win it, or if it ended in a draw or one of them loses, then those teams will feel pretty much like it's all over for them. Steve's mentioned Nantes have got some tough fixtures. They do. They've got a game in hand, which always looks nice, doesn't it, on a league table? Their game in hand is against Paris Saint-Germain, so it almost doesn't matter. So really perilous position for both teams, and I just cannot see any way it won't end up in a shootout, this, because I think both teams will probably fancy their chances of beating the other team, weirdly enough, even though they're both in poor form. I think they'll see weaknesses in the other side, which will, the managers will try to draw some confidence from. So, yeah, I think an open game, over 2.25 goals is my play. Steve's obviously going for over 2.5 goals. And I should say, we did flag up before the last round of games that the goal count in League One goes up anyway at this stage of the season. So, you've got that on your side as well. I think 7 out of 9 games went over 2.5 goals in League One. On the last match day, which was before the international break. And I wouldn't be surprised to see some high-scoring games in League One again this weekend, and I certainly think this will be one of them.
So overs for the boys, 2.5 for Steve, plus 116, plus 114. And over 2.25, slightly more conservative, minus 114. We're looking for goals in Metz, Nantes. And to round out the picks, slightly earlier on the Sunday, 9 a.m. is Angers against Lyon. Angers, talking about the relegation situation, they have pulled themselves away from it recently with 7 games to go. So potentially not too much interest in really putting their foot to the floor here. James?
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. I think Angers are the first team in France League One this season who have got nothing to play for. They're in mid-table. They're in 12th place. And they've looked safe now from relegation, which was their only objective this season, was to avoid relegation for the past couple of games. And if you watch how they played in those last two games, I'm not sure they were as committed and played with the sort of urgency they would have done if they were in a relegation battle. They lost 2-0 at home to Nice 2 games ago, and then they lost 5-1 away at Lens in their last match. And, they've lost their 2 games there, and they're still in a pretty safe position. They're 10 points above the relegation zone with 7 games to go. So Angers are safe. And if you read the manager quotes, their manager's done a tremendous job this season to get them into mid-table, because a lot of people thought they would be facing a relegation battle. But he sounds to me like he's struggling to find reasons for the players to be motivated between now and the end of the season. There are no obvious objectives for Angers to be aiming for. And he's even rotated a couple of fringe players into the starting 11 in the last couple of games, which is always a sign at this time of the season that the managers may be looking at 1 or 2 other things as well as the results. So motivation is the main factor here. I just cannot see Angers finding the motivation that you need and that just naturally comes about when you've got plenty to play for. And the opposite is true of Lyon, who they face this weekend. Lyon are going for a top 3 spot. They're in really poor form. They're without a win in 8 games in all competitions, 4 wins, 4 defeats. But this is a great opportunity for them to get back on the horse because of the motivational difference. Lyon do have good players. They have underachieved recently, but I think it's a good opportunity for them to get a win here, because they're still in the hunt for a top 3, top 4 spot, which is really important for the club to get into the Champions League. So Lyon on the money line, I took a look at as a -1, at minus 130. You may want to take that. It's a short price for some people. I know some people don't like minus money teams away from home, but I think minus 130 is a decent price. My 1 unit play on Lyon is Lyon minus a 3/4 goal start on the Asian handicap, just to get a bigger price. That's available at minus 105, and you would still obviously make a profit with that play if Lyon get the 3 points, which I think they should do this weekend. Some people will be put off by their poor form. They may also be put off by the fact that Lyon have had players away on international duty, but there are 1 or 2 big players for Lyon who haven't been away on international duty. Corentin Tolisso might be somebody worth a look in the player props market. And I just think the difference here in motivation and focus on the pitch on the day will make the difference. So it's 1 unit on Lyon on the Asian handicap for me.
Brilliant stuff, Steve. James, thanks for your company. Good luck to one and all. We'll keep everyone updated via our X feeds over the course of the weekend. Stretches out to Easter Monday for that Italian play as well. Get your comments in via YouTube. Follow us at Because We Win. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, of course. We are growing ever bigger. And, of course, we're building up to the World Cup finals. But it's a really good European slate this weekend. Hopefully, you can cash some tickets from all of us for now, though. It is goodbye.